Director Griffin here, and today we are going to be doing a tier maker video based on the CIS command cards. I know there's been a long delay since the release of the last video, but I had to get some work done, and I'm finally back and ready to finish this up. I know a lot of people have been requesting it, so here we go. Starting off with the CIS generic command cards. The first one we have is Mechanized Incursion. Now, Mechanized Incursion is a CIS generic 1 pip. It says it issues an order to one vehicle. After a friendly vehicle unit is issued an order, choose a friendly droid trooper unit at range 1 to 2 of it and issue that in order. Now, much like in the Republic video, I'm going to put this under gimmick tier just because it requires a vehicle to work. That said, CIS is far more likely to have vehicles in its army, so it's pretty much if you have a vehicle, you're going to include it. Kind of a staple. So yeah, it's a good card, just it requires a specific unit to work, so it has to be in gimmick tier. Next up is the generic 2 pip, which is Orbital Strike. It issues an order to a commander or heavy unit. Once this round, at the end of the activation of a friendly commander droid trooper unit or friendly field commander unit, it may perform an attack using the following weapon. Ranged 4 to unlimited, 2 red, 2 black, suppressive, immune to deflect. Something important about immune to deflect, it also means it's immune to any of the masteries, Gemso, Ceresu, or Ataru, any of them that they would come out with. It is immune to the damage returning potential of those abilities. So I'm going to put Orbital Strike under A tier. I would have put it under B tier before the super attacks were released, but I guess the big important thing with that is that they have Sharpshooter too. Or at least the 2 named ones do, and that makes this card really, really good. Suppressive is kind of meh on it, but you're throwing 2 red, 2 black, Sharpshooter 2, with the super attacks it's Surge to hit, I think with Kraken it's Surge to crit, and you're generally going to have at least 1 aim to work with, so you're looking at 3 to 4 hits through cover on anything. I use this thing to pick off, exposed sniper teams, Mark 2s, mortars, anything with 3 health or less, even R2. Honestly, can potentially die to this when it's got super attack backing it up. I think if a regular tactical droid is using it, it maybe goes to like B tier. And then I would say like if an S-Tac is using it, it goes up to S tier. So I'm just going to put it in A tier where it's kind of in the middle of those 2 things. Next up is Roger Roger, the generic CIS 3 pip. Now this one says it issues an order to 3 droid troopers. When a unit is issued an order using this card, it gains either 1 dodge or 1 surge token. I will say this is A tier. It is a strictly better assault. The only restriction being that it can't issue orders to like Maul or Dooku, which kind of makes sense. But it gives out free dodge tokens. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use it to get a surge token. But like, oh, you have Magna Guards. Cool. Now they can have 2 dodges in a turn. Your generic B1s now have a dodge, which means they're not going to necessarily have to take their terrible white saves. Dodges in CIS are just really good for negating the inevitable casualties that you're going to take. So overall, just a really, really strong command card. I do like that the card is restricted to orders given by the card, and we're going to talk about why that is later. Because if it was like every face up, it would just be S++ tier probably. But anyway, moving on to General Grievous. General Grievous is 1 pip. Alright, so the first one is his Trained in Your Jedi Arts card. General Grievous gains Disengage, also it only issues an order to him, and 1 dodge token. At the end of his activation, he may perform an attack against each enemy unit at range 1 using the following weapon. It's melee to 1, 1 red, 2 black, 1 white, suppressive, and versatile. I am going to put this, I had it at S tier, but I've thought about it and it's going into A tier. It's a bomb, and it's a good bomb, but not an amazing bomb. It's not up there with honestly the best. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, it gives him a dodge, which is really nice because he has block, so he can just get surge to defense for an entire turn. Or for an entire attack, I should say, which is pretty nice. If he's in melee and he has tenacity, he is going to get an extra red die on the melee attack. But he's just throwing a lot of like 1 red, 2 black, and a white isn't that amazing of a pool. Especially if he's like throwing it into a bunch of guys in heavy cover. If he gets like a bunch of people out in the open, this card can be really, really good. But because it doesn't have blast, it kind of just dies to cover in a really big way, and I find that more and more people just kind of set it up so that he just doesn't do a lot of damage. Disengage is really nice, but again, it's just not it's a good card on a unit that has some issues with like mobility and stuff, and it's just, unfortunately, I can't put it in S tier compared to some of the other cards we're going to have up there. Next up is his 2-pip, Supreme Commander. It issues an order to 2 troopers. He gains a surge token for each other friendly trooper at range 1. When another friendly trooper has a face-up order token, it gains Guardian 2 and can Guardian during a melee attack. So, if you want to turn up your Magna cards to 11 on the Guardian side of things, you can really protect Grievous effectively with this card. You can also just pass wounds off to be 1s. The problem here is that Grievous's problem isn't damage. Grievous is tanky, like really tanky. He gets surges, he gets a dodge from this card. Like, he doesn't have I haven't seen him have a lot of issues with being shot, except for the fact that he gets suppressed like nobody's business. This card does nothing to prevent him from being suppressed. That said, it is a strictly better push in his, like, if you have him on the table, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. It's not spectacular, but it's push but better. So it has to at least go above C tier. Following up, that is Crush Them, which is his 3-pip, and it says, General Grievous plus 2 units. When General Grievous issues an order to a unit, that unit gains 1 surge token for each defeated unit. I hate to say this, but this is like C tier. It's not much better than Assault. It's very much so like you can kind of win the game more if you're already winning, but it gives surge tokens, and they're good, don't get me wrong. CAS needs their surge tokens, but like, again, it doesn't do anything to help Grievous with his major problems, and it very much so requires that you be in a dominant position to play properly, and I just don't know if that's really where the game's at for CIS right now. So that's where I'm at with Grievous. Moving on to Dooku's command cards, we have his 1-pip, Fear, Surprise, Intimidation, which says, issue an order to Count Dooku. Count Dooku gains Arsenal 2 and Relentless, and each of his ranged weapons gain Versatile. After he performs an attack, each defender gains 2 suppression tokens. This is straight up an S tier card, because Dooku has Cunning. So it's a 1-pip that allows him to move, attack, and then attack twice, while, you know, tossing out suppression. It's just really, really good, especially because his ranged attack, you're going to throw out 3 suppression essentially on that ranged attack, and then 2 to whoever you're hitting in the face. It's very, very good, especially like Burst of Speed Dooku. He just covers a ton of distance before you can even react, and then stabs you and slices off your arm and just repeatedly beats you to death. So yeah, really, really, really good card. His 2-pip, Double the Fall, is honestly one of my favorite cards, and I kind of want to play Dooku more because I really love this card. It issues an order to himself in 1 unit. At the start of the activation phase, if he has a face-up order token, he can return it to his order pool to choose up to 2 enemy units at range 1 to 2 and return their order tokens to the pool. Now, I used to be really down on this card because it was like, it doesn't stop any triggers from happening. You still get your link targeting arrays, you still get your, you know, targets, your defends, any face-up triggers that would happen anyway. But in a meta dominated by CIS, it does force AI, and it does, well, if you don't have override around, it also does kind of just, it's 2 to 1, so you're going to muck up their order pool, and if you play it properly, the only token in your pool will be Dooku, or Dooku plus something else, and maybe you'll have improvised orders to handle that. So you can kind of use it without any cost to yourself. So at that point, I'm going to put it at A tier. Again, Cunning is great. 2-pip Cunning is pretty nice. But yeah, I have actually warmed up on this card quite a lot. I really do like the control elements. I've had it used against me in ways that I didn't expect, so really just a solid card overall. Last but not least is You Disappoint Me. His 3-pip issues an order to himself and 2 units. When Count Dooku issues an order to a unit, that unit gains 1 dodge token. After Count Dooku performs a ranged attack against a trooper unit, he may perform a speed 2 move with it. So first of all, it's a 3-pip that gives him a dodge, plus 2 other units dodge. And as I said, dodges in CIS are very, very good. His ability to perform a ranged attack and then move somebody's speed 2 is basically a better force push. So it's just a really, really strong effect overall, and it's going to go straight into S tier. Dooku's got a really good command hand, and I'm glad we're seeing him played more now that like Burst of Speed has helped some of his mobility issues. Which, I mean, I kind of said it when Burst of Speed came out. The units that didn't really need a ton of help, like Dooku, like he was still getting in a lot of times. But nowadays, like Burst of Speed, like on Speed 2 guys, is just really, really strong. Moving on to Darth Maul, my current favorite character because of his ultra flexibility. We're going to go with his first 1-pip, which is his 1-1-pip, which is not at last. It is... Where is it? Oh, there it is. Duel of the Fates. Darth Maul gains 1 dodge token and disengage. I don't know if you've noticed a theme here, but a lot of CIS units have disengage. It's crazy. While Maul is engaged with an enemy unit, that unit cannot spend aim, dodge, standby, or surge tokens. This card is just, it's S tier. It's really strong. It gives him a free dodge, disengage. It allows him to go from, oh, hey, I'm trying to blender one unit to, oh, hey, I'm going to go blender another unit. Or I need to get away from something that's hurting me. I'm just going to get away by double moving. Or move, saber throw, move. Like, I've done that actually, where I've waited for somebody to activate a unit. I've disengaged out, saber throwed something, then moved into the unit that had just gone, and then like force push something as well, just to be really cheeky. Just a really, really strong card overall. It really helps with Maul's insane mobility. So very, very good. His engagement with enemy unit is really kind of, it's a good thing. It has weird interactions with like Exemplar and stuff like that. I wish it prevented you from using an Exemplar's tokens. It does prevent the unit that you're engaged with from using it, but if you engage an Exemplar unit, other units can still use their tokens. I wish that was not the case. If this could shut down Exemplar, it would be, oh, just so good. I would love to throw them all into Yoda and just be like, nope, you don't get your 3-pip this turn. But unfortunately, since he's not the one spending them, it doesn't do anything to him. So, sad face there, but it is what it is. Next up is the Phantom Menace. This has 2 separate triggers that it can use. The first is, it issues an order to Maul and 1 trooper. He can't attack for the turn. Enemy units beyond range 2 of Maul cannot attack him. It's good. It helps him on the approach if you decide to use it that way. I much prefer it for its second trigger, which is you divulge it during your deploy unit step. He gains Infiltrate, and then during the first round, he and the Dark Droids can't perform objective card actions. Then you discard the card. It puts you down a command card, which is annoying for CIS, but it just means you're probably going to play standing orders turn 4 or turn 1, depending on the scenario. I'm sorry, turn 6 or turn 1, depending on the scenario. And not being able to perform objective card actions turn 1 is fine, because you can also do things like recover the supplies, for example. You can still grab a supply box because it's not an objective card, it's a condition token. So it's very versatile. I've played this and then still deployed Maul in my own deployment, because what it does is it forces your opponent to deploy in reaction to what Maul is doing, which is very, very strong. The only thing that's really kind of bringing it down is it doesn't actually do anything once it's played to kind of get Maul to hit harder. So I'm going to put it under A tier. It's a good utility card. It's not a blender, it doesn't do anything insane, but it's definitely strong. Last but not least is Maul's second 1-pip, which is technically his 3-pip, is At Last. It issues an order to Darth Maul. While building a command hand, treat this card as though it has 3 pips. Again, Maul gains an aim token and Jedi Hunter. When he activates, he may suffer 1 wound. This is going into, if my mouse will work, S tier. Surprising no one, I would think. Mostly because it turns on Juyo. It allows you to just, I'm going to go ahead and activate the 3 action cycle if your opponent hasn't been obliging enough to do it for you. The aim token is really nice, especially if you're going to do like a move, saber throw, move, and just pick something off as quickly as possible. Like that gives you almost a guaranteed 4. Jedi Hunter is cool and all, but unfortunately, again, it's the affliction that all Jedi kind of have, and Jedi Hunter as a keyword kind of has, is that Jedi don't want to fight Jedi. So it's cool, I guess, but not super useful. So yeah, that's Darth Maul. Moving on to Cad Bane. Now, I probably would have put Cad Bane's cards a lot lower, and part of the reason I didn't produce this video is because I wanted to see if I was wrong about him, and I totally was. After all, a list that included him 1 Adepticon. So I'm going to rate the cards based on how I feel about them now, which is not where it was 2 months ago when I probably should have made this video, and I'm totally happy that I don't have to eat my own foot. So we're going to go ahead and start with his one pip, which is I Am Your Worst Nightmare, if I can actually pull it up. Issues in order to Cad Bane. Cad Bane gains Uncanny Luck 2. During Cad Bane's activation, he may perform up to 2 attack actions. It's a solid card. I mean, dude's got, what, Steady? I'm trying to remember what Cad Bane actually has. Yeah, he's got Steady, Sharpshooter 2, or Sharpshooter 1. Sorry, not 2. That would be really good. But he's got, he's got Pierce 1, right? So what I understand about this card is he can basically move twice, shoot twice, is my understanding of what he can do with this card. And I could be totally wrong about this, but because it's Steady says after you perform a move action, you may perform a free ranged attack action. He moves, shoots, he moves, shoots. Which is really good. I mean, it's essentially Gunslinger for a turn. And the Uncanny Luck just makes, plus Danger Sense 2, just makes him really tanky. So I'm going to put this up at S tier. I think it's a really, really strong card. Now that I've seen a little bit more of it. His 2-pip, I'm in Control, issues an order to himself and 1 unit. At the start and end of Cad Bane's activation, he may transfer any number of suppression tokens to any number of trooper units at range 1 to 2. Each trooper unit that gains at least 1 suppression token in this way also gains 1 immobilize token. Cad Bane is like the king of immobilize with his gauntlets and everything else, and I'm in Control just kind of leans into that more. I'll be honest, I am not still seeing the overall like insane application here, but I do know that the ability just to pass off suppression before you rally is really good. So I'm going to put it in A tier. I think it's an A tier card. Just giving out suppression to mobilizations feels good. And yeah, I think that's just where I'm gonna lay it down. Last but not least is I Make the Rules Now. It issues an order only to Cad Bane, and it has 2 separate triggers. If this card was not divulged, place 1 Bane token within range 1 of Cad Bane and beyond range 1 of all enemy units. Then, if you divulge it, you place 3 Bane tokens on the battlefield beyond range 1 of any deployment zone. Do not deploy Cad Bane. The card must be selected round 1. So, to my understanding, if you play this with its first trigger, since Cad Bane's already on the field, you're going to use it to deploy his mine. And it's a range 1, 2 red, 2 black, blast, impact 2, suppressive mine with surge to crit. It's a really good mine. And so, with my thought there is that, okay, so it's a mine trigger in and of itself, it's really strong. Then you have the ability to potentially divulge it, put out the mine, put Cad Bane somewhere, and then put out the dud somewhere else. That's really strong to me. That said, if you decide to do the Cad Bane thing, and depending on how your opponent plays, they could trigger it at an awkward point. And maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe because when you put out the Cad Bane tokens, you have the ability to flip Cad Bane at the start, I think, of any activation phase. You still have more control over it than I think you do. But I get the feeling that it could be, depending on your opponent's list, possible for them to kind of gimmick your way past it. So I'm gonna put it A tier. I could be wrong. This all could be S tier for all I understand. But I'm still a little cool on Cad Bane. I'm still not entirely sure about him. So that's my opinion on where these things go. Last but not least, the Super Attack cards. Now again, I'm going to go back to saying I'm glad I didn't do this video a while back, because I would have had a totally different view on some of these cards before than I do now. Starting with They Too Will Suffer. It issues an order to the Super Tactical Droid. At the end of the command phase, your opponent must choose one of their core, special forces, support, or heavy units with an order token, if able, and return it to their order pool. The first time your opponent would draw a random order from their order pool this round, you may force them to draw a token with the rank of your choice instead. So, I would have put this card at S tier before. Now, I am going to put it at Gimmick tier. And here's why. There is a cascading amount of problems with this card. First and foremost is that you don't get to pick what goes back to your opponent's command pool. Your opponent does. And more often than not, in my experience, it's going to be something that has no value to them whatsoever. So you're not getting much off of that trigger. Then you have the ability to, the first time if your opponent would draw a random order from their order pool, you can force them to draw a token with whatever rank. Guess what? this can be canceled out as well by just having improvised orders in your list. So again, not amazing. And it issues an order to the super tac, which, you know, it's usually a support unit. Even Kraken tends to be more support than like your straight up fighter unit. So it's a lot of like cancelable or very meh effects, and then you have to issue order to a super tactical droid. There's a reason that I'm putting it under gimmick tier, and the reason is that if you give a super tac a comms relay, this card is totally fine, because now it's just an order you can issue at range 2. Like, not a huge deal. It's essentially a better ambush, but you have to pay the 5 points tax to do that. And I don't love that, because you can't always fit that 5 points in there. So that's what I'm going to say about that card. It has its applications. I lost a game because of it, but it involved somebody jamming me and then forcing me to hand back like the only good token I could put out. Another thing that's really kind of met about the card is like, oh, you play this card against like a Dooku 1-pip, it does nothing, basically. Like the first trigger doesn't even go off. It's just, there's too many things that can go wrong with this card for me to really place it anywhere other than like gimmick, because you have to like do things to make it super effective and to not be locked into giving the super tactical the order. Now, a card that is not a gimmick is Preservation Protocols. Preservation Protocols says it issues an order to 2 droid trooper units or AI units. When the super tactical droid issues an order to a droid trooper unit or unit with AI, it gains disengage, impervious, and a dodge token. This card, even at its base power, is S tier. Giving 2 units disengage, impervious, and a dodge is really, really good. Now let's talk about how you can break this card, to a certain extent. If you have Kalani, or a generic super tac, you can issue 4 orders in a turn with this card that give the effects. So what you do is you issue an order. You have to have a comms relay for this to work, mind. You issue your first order to like a B1, and then you go down the chain, but you end it with Kalani or the generic super tac. You then relay the order off of Kalani or the generic super tac to something else. That is considered issuing an order from that unit. So you get the initial trigger on the B1, you get the comms relay trigger. You're now at 2 triggers. Then you issue your second order. You get a 3rd trigger. Then you direct a unit. You get a 4th trigger. If any other faction in the game had the ability to give 4 units a dodge, disengage, and impervious, people would lose their minds. But this is just like par for the course for CIS. So I guess the point I'm trying to say here is between They Too Will Suffer and Preservation Protocols, you should try to fit a comms relay on your super tax if you can, because even with Kraken, it still potentially gives you a 3rd trigger off of it, and it's just really, really good. The only downside of the comms relay thing is that you can't give it to the super tac, which you do generally want to. He's really good. All of them are really good with impervious since they have red saves. But I mean, it's just ridiculous. I've done it. I've given 2 B2s and 2 Magnas, disengage, impervious, and a dodge. Like, that's a lot of defense on a lot of beef. So definitely worth looking into. Last but not least is the Do Not Underestimate Our Means card for super tactical droids. They're 3-pip. They issue an order to 3 droid trooper units or AI units. It has 2 different triggers. The first is, if this card was not divulged, at the start of the activation phase, choose up to 2 friendly units with face-up order tokens. Each chosen unit recovers. And then divulge, deploy unit step, choose up to 3 friendly units with AI. Each chosen unit gains reinforcements. This card, probably surprising no one, is S tier. I cannot express how strong this card is. We'll start with the divulge trigger. You can divulge and deploy 3 staps, a whole stap wing off on the side using reinforcements where your opponent has no ability to really respond to them. 3 ion spiders, 3 B2s, like there's just 3 Magnas, or even a combination of many of those. You can just put an entire flanking force somewhere your opponent does not expect after they can do anything about it. And then if you don't do that, if you don't need to, you get 2 free recovers. Now there's a little bit of a restriction here in terms of what it can issue orders to with droid troopers or AI units, but let's say you are playing Maul and you have dark droids and they have a comms relay. You issue an order to a dark droid because it's a droid trooper. It relays to Maul. Maul now has a face up and is eligible to recover. So there are ways that you can use this card to just get recover on whatever you want, basically. Again, if Maul's close to your super tack and it has a comms relay, it can also pop the order to him at range 2. There's also a thing with like commanding presence. I don't think it works with comms relay, but I know like you can use commanding presence to increase the distance of certain orders. That it just makes it really, really good. Overall, I mean, CIS is just spoiled for choice, I think, in command cards. The only things that are like meh are Grievous's cards, and then like both of the gimmick tier cards are really good if you build for them. So I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that CIS is a strong faction. When everything you can pick essentially has solid commands, it's very hard to pick something bad. So that is the conclusion of this video. I will hopefully be doing a video on all of the gimmick tier cards eventually. It's not a priority for me right now. I have 2 more videos I intend to do before that, the first of which is a video discussing the top 5 upgrades that I believe Legion needs, and then 5 that are kind of fun and cool that I think would be really interesting if they were introduced. And then another video on some rules that I would really like to see reworked or changed that I think overall would benefit the health of the game. Those should be coming out in the next few weeks now that I'm on leave, so look forward to those. As always, I thank you for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and goodbye.